Let me tell you something about Harold Wilkins. The man's a legend in his own right. 67 years old, sharp as a tack, and built like he could still take down a tree with his bare hands. You ever meet someone who's lived through so much crap that they don't even flinch anymore? That's Harold. Vietnam vet, retired mechanic, and a guy who's seen the system chew up and spit out people like him more times than he cares to count. Harold's life? Not fancy, but steady. He's got this old Cadillac, 1978, black and barely holding together like an antique store piece on wheels. It's his pride and joy, even though it sputters like an asthmatic mule on cold mornings. That car, along with his grandkids, is what keeps him going, especially Marcus, his oldest grandson. Nobody really knows what Marcus does. He's always on assignment, which is just fancy talk for don't ask. But Harold doesn't pry. Family's family. Now, Harold lives in a quiet little corner of Memphis. Well, quiet if you ignore the sirens, sketchy streetlights, and cops who patrol like they're auditioning for a reality show. Yeah, let's just say his neighborhood isn't winning any safest place to retire awards. But Harold doesn't complain. Complaining is for people who haven't been through real hell, and Harold's seen more of that than most. So it's a Friday night, and Harold's driving home after grabbing some groceries, milk, bread, that kind of boring stuff. The roads are mostly empty, save for the occasional rusted-out pickup truck or a wandering raccoon. The air's thick with that southern humidity that makes your clothes stick to you like a needy ex. Harold's radio is crackling out some old blues, his kind of music, raw and honest like him. Then it happens. Red and blue lights explode in his rearview mirror, blinding and relentless. You know that sinking feeling you get when you realize life's about to kick you in the teeth? Harold felt it, deep in his gut. He muttered under his breath, well, shit, here we go. He pulls over because what the hell else is he gonna do? Run? The man's too old for that kind of drama. Two cops step out of the patrol car. They're young, cocky, and white as mayonnaise. One's chewing gum like he's auditioning for a toothpaste commercial, and the other's got that I'm the law around here swagger. Evening, sir, says Officer Gum Chewer, shining his flashlight right into Harold's face. Mind telling us what you're doing out this late? Harold doesn't flinch. He's been through worse interrogations. Driving home, last I checked, that ain't illegal. Gum Chewer smirks. License and registration? Harold hands it over without a word. The other cop, Swagger Boy, leans in, eyeing the back seat like he's expecting to find a trunk full of stolen TVs or something. Spoiler alert. All he's gonna find back there is Harold's old fishing hat and a bag of groceries. What's in the trunk? Swagger Boy asks, his tone dripping with suspicion. Harold lets out a dry chuckle. You think I got bodies back there or something? Sorry to disappoint, but it's just a spare tire and a toolkit. You want to see? Be my guest. The cops exchange a look. You know the one. The kind that says, we're going to make this a long night for you, old man. They ask Harold to step out of the car. Now, Harold's no fool. He knows the drill. Black guy, late at night, empty road. Yeah, this ain't going to end with a handshake and a have a nice day. But Harold keeps his cool. He steps out, hands visible like he's rehearsing for a public service announcement. Stop. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel. It gives us the support we need to keep creating more amazing stories for you. Thank you and enjoy listening. They pat him down, and Harold can't resist throwing in some sarcasm. Careful, boys. You might find a Werther's original in my pocket. Dangerous stuff. Neither of them laughs. Then they start asking the real stupid questions. Where were you earlier tonight? Did you pass by the gas station on 5th? Heard there was a robbery. Harold raises an eyebrow. Robbery? Dude, I'm 67 years old. You think I'm out here pulling stick-ups? What's next? You gonna accuse me of jaywalking? Gum Chewer shrugs. Just routine questions, sir. Yeah, right, Harold mutters under his breath. The next thing Harold knows, they're slapping cuffs on him. You're being detained for questioning, Swagger Boy announces like he's just won a prize. For what? Harold demands, his voice steady but firm. We'll figure that out at the station, Gum Chewer says with a grin that makes Harold's stomach turn. As they shove him into the back of their cruiser, Harold stares out the window, his face calm but his mind racing. He knows this isn't about justice. It's about power, plain and simple. And Harold? He's not about to let these kids think they've got the upper hand. The Cadillac sits abandoned on the side of the road, its headlights still glowing dimly, like a witness to a crime that didn't happen. Harold's night had officially gone to hell. The police station was as welcoming as a dentist's office in a horror movie. Fluorescent lights flickering, an odd smell of sweat and stale coffee in the air, and the kind of silence that made your skin crawl. The two officers, let's call them Gum Chewer and Swagger Boy, dragged Harold into the interrogation room. It was your standard bad cop decor setup, cold metal chair, table bolted to the floor, and a one-way mirror that screamed, "Yeah, we're judging you." Swagger Boy leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking like he was auditioning for a discount crime drama. Gum Chewer, meanwhile, flipped open a file with all the confidence of someone who probably failed high school English. "All right, old-timer," Gum Chewer started, grinning like he'd already solved the case. "You want to tell us what you were doing near 5th Street tonight?" Harold raised an eyebrow. "You mean driving home with my groceries? Real criminal activity, huh?" "Next, you'll be busting me for flossing without a permit." Swagger Boy stepped in, his voice dripping with condescension. "We're investigating a robbery, Mr. Wilkins, and your car matches the description of the getaway vehicle." Harold couldn't help it. He laughed. Not a nervous chuckle, but a full-on belly-deep laugh that made Swagger Boy's face turn redder than a fire hydrant. "You think my busted old Cadillac is a getaway car? Man, that thing can barely get away from a red light." The humor didn't land. Gum Chewer slammed his hands on the table. "This isn't a joke, sir. You're in serious trouble." Harold leaned back, calm as ever. "Serious trouble for what? Buying whole milk instead of skim? You've got nothing, and we both know it." But the cops weren't backing down. They threw around big words like suspicion and probable cause, but Harold could see through their act. This wasn't about evidence, it was about intimidation. "Here's the deal," Swagger Boy said, leaning in like he was about to share a secret. "You tell us what you know, and maybe we cut you some slack." Harold smirked. "Let me guess. You're hoping I confess to something I didn't do, so you can clock out early? Hate to break it to you, but I'm not playing." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a butter knife. Harold didn't flinch, didn't blink. He'd faced worse in his life. War zones. Systemic racism. You name it. These two clowns? They were just another chapter in a long book of bullshit. After what felt like hours, they tossed him in a holding cell. The door clanged shut, the sound echoing like a bad omen. Harold sat on the hard bench, his hands resting on his knees, eyes steady. He muttered to himself, a faint grin tugging at his lips. If this is their A-game, they're in for a rude awakening. The night wasn't over, and Harold knew it. But he also knew one thing for sure. When the truth came out, these boys weren't going to know what hit them. Morning rolled in, and Harold found himself shuffled into the courtroom like yesterday's bad news. The place had all the charm of a DMV, hard benches, bored faces, and a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Harold, though? He was calm as ever, sitting there in his Sunday best, which, for him, was a clean shirt and the same old boots he'd had for years. The prosecutor, a slick guy in a cheap suit, strutted up like he was about to deliver the performance of his life. "Your Honor," he began, voice dripping with fake authority. "The defendant was found near the scene of a robbery in a vehicle matching the suspect's car." Harold raised an eyebrow. "Matching the car?" "Yeah, because my old caddy's just so common these days. Guess everyone's driving classics now." The gallery chuckled, and even the judge hid a smirk behind her gavel. But the prosecutor wasn't done. He pulled out a grainy photo from some security camera, waving it around like it was the Holy Grail. "This is our evidence, Your Honor. The vehicle seen leaving the scene." Harold squinted. "You're kidding, right? That looks like a potato took it. Could be any car." The judge leaned forward, clearly unimpressed. "Do you have anything more substantial, counselor?" Prosecutor Slick gulped, but kept pushing. "We believe further questioning is necessary to confirm—" "Further questioning?" Harold interrupted, his voice steady but loud enough to carry. "Lady and gentlemen, I've been questioned so much I could teach a master class. Maybe we move this circus along." Just as things were heating up, the courtroom doors swung open. A tall man in a sharp suit strolled in, like he owned the place. Marcus. He didn't say a word, just handed a folder to the judge with the confidence of someone who knew he had all the answers. "Who's this?" Prosecutor Slick barked, his bravado cracking. Marcus flashed a cold smile. "Just someone here to clear up your mess." The room went quiet as the judge skimmed through the documents. Her face changed. Confusion, then surprise, then outright irritation. "Mr. Wilkins," she finally said, looking at Harold, "it appears you were nowhere near the scene of the crime. The evidence is irrefutable. You are free to go." Harold stood adjusting his jacket. "Well, Your Honor, that's the first sensible thing I've heard all night." As he walked past Marcus, he gave his grandson a subtle nod. Marcus didn't say much, just patted Harold on the back and muttered, "We're not done yet." Outside the courthouse, Harold and Marcus stood by the old Cadillac, its rusty frame looking oddly triumphant. Harold lit a cigarette, taking a long drag before breaking the silence. "So, you gonna tell me what the hell just happened in there, or you gonna keep playing James Bond?" Harold asked, narrowing his eyes at his grandson. Marcus smirked, adjusting his tie. "Let's just say I've got friends in high places and they don't like sloppy work." "Friends in high places?" Harold snorted. "Boy, you better not be running some underground poker ring." Marcus chuckled. "Not exactly, Grandpa. But But when the local PD tries to pin a robbery on a war veteran without a shred of real evidence, it gets noticed. Harold tilted his head, suspicion flickering in his eyes. What are you, Marcus? Some kind of secret agent? Marcus leaned in close, his voice low and sharp. Let's just say I work for people who handle things quietly, and when I heard about this, I made a few calls. Harold's laugh was half disbelief, half pride. You're telling me I just got bailed out by the CIA? Or is it FBI? You got a badge I should know about. Marcus grinned, his eyes glinting with mischief. Something like that. Let's just say those cops are about to have the worst week of their lives. Internal Affairs loves a good scandal. As if on cue, 2 squad cars screeched into the courthouse parking lot. The same cops who'd cuffed Harold earlier stepped out, looking smug, until 2 men in black suits approached them. The suits flashed their badges, and Harold didn't miss the panic spreading across the cops' faces. Well, would you look at that? Harold said, leaning back against his car. Guess karma's quicker than I thought. Marcus straightened his tie, looking cool as ever. They'll learn not to mess with the wrong people. Harold tossed his cigarette and patted Marcus on the shoulder. Good job, kid. Next time maybe clue me in before I end up in a holding cell. Marcus laughed. Where's the fun in that? The two climbed into the Cadillac, the old engine roaring to life. As they drove off, Harold rolled down the window, letting the wind whip past him. For the first time in a long while, he felt something rare, a sense of justice, sharp and undeniable. Marcus, Harold said, his voice lighter than it had been all night. Remind me to buy you a damn drink. Marcus smirked, glancing at his grandfather. You're buying the first round, old man. Thank you to everyone who took the time to listen to this story. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Life Mosaic channel. We're here to share the most gripping, heartfelt, and thought-provoking stories just for you. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow with another exciting tale. Stay tuned.